All right, I just want to thank the organizers of the conference for inviting me to speak about small centers and settlement welcoming communities in small centers. Newcomer settlement to small centers has been a topic of interest for many years, and more recently as a potential destination for refugees. Manitoba Association of Newcomer Serving Organizations, otherwise known as MANSO, commissioned IRCC-funded research through the Rural Development Institute at Brandon University on small center capacity in 5 rural Manitoba communities with a focus on refugees in particular, generating community reports that were completed in 2016. One of the 5 communities in the project is actually a combination of 4 locations, Winkler, Morden, Altona, and Carman in the southern part of Manitoba in a region known as the Pembina Valley. This is where I live and work as the Executive Director of Regional Connections, a settlement and integration service provider organization. My experience with the establishment, development, and capacity building of settlement and integration services for newcomers in a small center has been challenging and extremely rewarding. Just a bit of background. Immigration to Winkler began as a solution to fill labor market need as population was declining and employers were finding it difficult to find workers. In 1998, a pilot project called the Winkler Initiative was launched. Through the combined effort between the Winkler Chamber of Commerce, Business and Industry, an agreement was signed between the province and its federal counterparts to bring the Manitoba Provincial Nominee Program into being. The pilot welcomed 50 families to settle in Winkler. A network of businesses provided jobs, host families provided initial settlement support, and a community committee was developed as its first point of contact. The predominant group of arrivals were Russian-German from Germany. What happened next has been described as a phenomenon. The success of the pilot project, be careful about pilot projects, has led to more than 13,000 people from 120 source countries who live in Winkler, Altona, and Morden. Our organization welcomes between 1,000 and 1,100 people annually. The communities are growing at a fast pace. The figures from Stats Canada 2011 census, and I joined Debbie in really being curious about what's going to happen in the next census. The city of Winkler grew by 17.6% over the 5 years. The city of Morden, 18.9%. The surrounding rural municipality of Stanley, 31%. The town of Altona, 10%. When I'm talking about small centers here, I just wanted to let you know a little bit about the population of each of these communities. Winkler tops the population in this region by with 12,005 people. The city of Morden is 7,800. Altona is just over 4,000. The rate of growth has put pressure on the communities and the surrounding municipalities, but has also brought opportunities. From the beginning, partnerships were key to the attraction and retention of immigrants and refugees. As needs arise, our organization took the lead on adding new partnerships as needed to work through challenges and issues such as crowding in the schools, doctor shortages, high birth rate, no interpretation services, no public transportation either within the communities, between the communities, or from those communities to Winnipeg. Long-term strategic planning was needed, and a lot of new stakeholders are added, as I said, as we move forward. Refugee resettlement in the region. When sponsorship groups made the decision to bring Syrian families to the region, we already had a well-established programs and services available with experienced staff to deliver them. We initiated a meeting with the sponsorship groups, provided cultural and diversity training for the volunteers, and have worked together with them since the beginning. The region has been no stranger to refugee sponsorship. In the 70s, Vietnamese refugees were welcomed, and more recently, one group called Build a Village, sponsorship group in Altona, has brought more than 30 families for about 200 people to the community of Altona over the past 10 years. Altona's group decided to bring 5 Syrian families, a decision made by the sponsorship group with very little community collaboration. So there was skepticism and concerns were expressed about bringing that number of families to the small community. I wanted to point out, it wasn't who they were bringing, it was how many they were bringing. Because essentially what happened is 45 people moved into that community in 1 year, increasing the population by 1%. The sponsorship group has strong community support in many areas and focused on the positives and the voices of inclusion and caring for all humanity, even if there were some naysayers. The number of families arriving meant that they would need a strong support system, which has brought the community together. People found space in their lives to share with the newcomers and have found that they have gained so much more than they have given. The strong community support has been effective in quieting the negativity that was evident at the beginning. These youth actually took part in our Learn to Skate program, sponsored by Canadian Tire, a partnership, again, that's very valuable to us. We had 49 children and youth participate. The ice time was donated by the community, and Canadian Tire provided skates and helmets for the children and youth to keep. Furthermore, these young people were treated to a Winnipeg Jets game sponsored by Canadian Tire. They got to sit in a box. I've never got that. I don't know. The other thing about the Altona 5 Syrian families, and Altona is where I live, so I personally know the families. They're having a baby. One of the families is having a baby any day now. So we will have a new baby in Altona, Canadian. So that'll be fun. And one of my staff just texted me yesterday and said the town of Carmen will be getting their first family next week. So we do intakes on all the families to really connect them with our services as soon as they have arrived. So basically, all are welcome. Working and living in a small community means living close. We see each other in the neighborhood, the grocery store, in some playgrounds, in schools, which means helping someone with settlement is a very natural part of everyday life. We see parents watching their kids play in their front yards or riding freely on their bicycles. Seeing families interact in this way helps people to see that different doesn't mean scary. Building community networks. Community and immigration committees offer a forum to discuss issues or concerns, and there's immigration committees in each of the 3 communities of Winkler, Morden, and Altona. Safe community initiatives have been launched to help raise awareness. Cultural celebrations in each community involve both newcomers and Canadian-born. Employers have welcoming workplaces that celebrate diversity and starting to do cultural training for the workplace for employees, for supervisors and managers, workplace language training to create safe workplaces. Schools, the education system has grown quickly. In Winkler, they've had 3 new schools built in the last, since 2006, and they still have 1,000 students in portable classrooms. So they have really worked on developing a comprehensive EAL protocol. That's a Manitoba term for ESL. The school liaison workers connect the students and families with the school, and then training with staff around the philosophy of inclusion and all children belonging after school programs. I think what's really important in small communities is positive messaging. So celebrating diversity makes us stronger as a community, myth busting, sharing immigrant and refugee stories. And then our settlement organization has worked really hard to provide services in all of these communities, largely because we need to go where the newcomers are living due to transportation challenges. A streamlined intake process so that we are not the we are not the organization presenting barriers for access to services, creating a welcome space, providing services in first language where possible. One of my staff said to me when people had heard that refugees were going to be moving into our community, they said, what are we going to do? What are we going to do? And this was in the lineup at the grocery store, and she just turned around and she says, well, we're going to welcome them. It's very simple. Volunteers, community engagement and relationship building. Our volunteer program has a base of 300 volunteers in various capacities. Canadian-born volunteers as language buddies, but our newcomer volunteers working at workplaces or volunteering at workplaces to get Canadian work experience, but also volunteering with us at cultural celebrations. So of those roughly 300 volunteers, about 40% are newcomers, and we're very excited about that. And most of the time they tell us they want to volunteer because they feel that they have had so much welcome and warmth that they want to give back to people and help celebrate newcomers coming into the communities. I had a short video. I don't know if it's going to work. Before it starts, if it can start, I'd like to close. This is not a professional video. Our first cultural celebration had 10 countries hosting tables that showcased artifacts, clothing, and information about their countries. This year we had 30 participants. At the end of our celebration called Culture Fest in Winkler, our volunteer coordinator was trying to get the participants to line up to take a picture. She was successful in getting most of them together, and then someone turned the music on, and then everyone started dancing, and after 3 attempts, finally the picture was taken, the music was turned on, and they danced for an hour. This is not an hour. This is only, hopefully, 2 minutes. To me, when I see this, I feel joyful because it doesn't, what it tells me is that we have a newcomer community that's also not only interacting with Canadians, but they're interacting with each other from across cultures. And it's just, yeah, this is a small town. This is exciting. Sorry for the abrupt stop. I know all of those people personally. I think that's the very cool thing about small communities. And again, I'll leave you with that. A lot of passion, and we see successful integration within the small communities. So it can be done.